Happy birthday if it's your birthday. Happy belated birthday if it's in the past. Happy future birthday if it's in the future. My name is Lime Green, and welcome to the
141
subscriber special. Today, to celebrate, we're going to be doing yet another Q&A, and you know what that means if you watched the last video. We're also going to be doing part 2 of our Happy Birthdays playthrough, which I'm doing in the background of every Q&A video because, my catchphrase is, the little intro, the happy birthday, you know, we just sat through it. If you know what Happy Birthdays is, it's a game where you try and create life from nothing. And so far, we've created a fish, butterfly, and a coral. And the main goal is to create humans. So really, we haven't gotten too far in it. Check out part 1 for, part 1 of Happy Birthdays playthrough. Part 1 for some answers to questions you may or may not have had.
Here's a question from the Blue Tuber, and they ask simply, why do you have so many first games? Alright, so I picked this question because I felt like over my time on this channel, I've been in this habit where I've been like, oh man, this is my first game. This is my first game. This is my first game. And I'm just clearing the air here. Alright, so my first game, my family's first game, was technically like demo discs because our first console was the PlayStation 1, right? And that's not really, I don't think those really count. And that's like family, we all shared that. And then eventually my mom, she won a contest to get Pokemon Crystal, and she got me a Game Boy Color. But until Pokemon Crystal got here, I just had the Game Boy Color. So I had to just, turn the Game Boy on and off and envision what it would be like to play the game. And I remember those days. Those were like almost like magical. Just imagining what it would be like to play the game and just turning the Game Boy on and seeing the Nintendo logo. I can't even express how it was like. After that, I think next we got the GameCube. I'm kind of skipping, other games we got for the PlayStation 1 and Game Boy, but, those are first. First, for the GameCube, we got, Scooby-Doo Unmasked, Harry Potter Goblet of Fire, and Mario Party 7. I talk about in the Scooby-Doo Unmasked video. Those are all 3 games we had at the first time. And then after that, we just kind of get in the, loop of buying systems. I guess notable, after that we get the PS2 for the family, but I couldn't tell you what the first game for the PS2 was, or even if the PS2 came before the GameCube. Like that's how like foggy my memory is and how early that is for me. The Monochrome Power Ranger asks, what games are you looking forward to? Well, first off, I'm playing Dragon Quest II right now. I think I'm almost done. And
my original plan was to finish Dragon Quest 1 and 2 before Dragon Quest 3 HD2D came out. And that didn't work out. A lot of other games kind of got in the way. Here we got back out. Fast forward time. So I eventually want to do Dragon Quest 3. Oh man, we found something new life. And then eventually after that, I want to do Donkey Kong Bonanza and Metal Gear Solid 3. One of them's coming first, I'm not sure which. I currently do not own Bonanza. I own Metal Gear Solid 3, so I don't know. I'm leaning more towards MGS3. I also want to do like recently I've said on the channel I played Gex. I kind of want to go down the rabbit hole of doing like mascot characters, but not like Mario and Sonic, like Gex, Bubsy, Cow the Kangaroo, Croc. Don't ask about the physical release of Croc. I'm already in that rabbit hole. Arrow the Acrobat, Bonk. Hopefully, Bonk gets a new game eventually. Life is Strange Reunion. I said I was hyped for that. Resident Evil 7, 8, and 9. I eventually want to jump into like the newer ones. People got really crazy about Resident Evil 7 in the first person perspective. That kind of like threw me off because, I'm all about Resident Evil 4, but I'm willing to give it a go. See what everyone's crazy about. But I'm definitely playing Resident Evil 9 in third person. Don't get me wrong. Tokyo Scramble looked cool. Can you tell I'm recording this after the partner showcase? Adventures of Elliot. People are kind of... I'm seeing a fan base for it. I couldn't get through Octopath. I liked it. Couldn't get through it. Eventually I will. But Elliot looks like I could be able to finish it easier. And Pragmata, I think that's like a game I'm going to like get day one and really like it. I really finding out I like the sci-fi genre, like that weird robot type. I don't know. It looks like a game I would be really vibing into. The near astral chain. Some other third example. Mr. Iliad says, you help Kickstart games? Don't you know those are all scams? Alright, well, I'll admit, there's been some Kickstarters in the past that, have not done so well. Well, they've done pretty good for financially for the person running them, but not very well for the people investing in them. But you have to look at it the other way. There are people out there that genuinely want projects done. Games, movies, like whatever it is. They want stuff, dream projects, and they just don't have funds for it, right? And I see that as like, you gotta give them money. Take the gamble. The worst that can happen is you lose some money. Best thing that can happen is you get something out of it, right? So I've been putting out in Kickstarters and whatnot, and
I can say I've been on the receiving end of good ones, and I'm not gonna say bad ones, but ones that didn't do so well. So I'll run through them, starting with uh, I guess the first one that I did. So the first game I really helped kickstart was Mina the Hollower, and I played Shovel Knight, and I played King Knight, and Spectre Knight, and Plague Knight, and even Cyber Shadow. You know, after playing all those games, I'm like, these are all pretty classics. You know, I I trust Yacht Club games. I wanted to help out on the original Shovel Knight. And so when Mina was announced, I'm like, okay, I want to help out in any way I can. And it wasn't like enough to get like a physical copy or my name in the credits or anything. And here I'll show you like a bit of Mina uh, screenshots or whatever. So you know a bit of what Mina the Hollower looks like. But oh, hold on. I gotta scan a thing. I'm not sure what this is. It's a mouse. Oh, it's a Mina the Hollower. But I'm not too crazy about Castlevania type games. I've yet to play one, but I had to throw something down just for the fact it's a Yacht Club game original. Plus, if you know me, you know I'm a sucker for that Game Boy type of aesthetic, that style. Oh man. So this next game I helped with was Sword of the Necromancer. Now, this is kind of contrasting Mina, and this game didn't really do so good. Uh, in that, a couple of things went wrong. uh, so I hope donate to this one because I was like, oh man, it's a city building like roguelike, and you can summon monsters. Just the concept, like the mismatch of all this sounded really neat. I wanted to see how they could pull it off. And it's a sequel, that to a game I've never played, nonetheless, I was excited. And then they had us waiting for a little bit, and then it turned out they had us waiting for such a long time that it was because that their publisher pulled out from underneath them, and they were scrambling for like more money, and they had to remake their previous game in an attempt to get the funds to make the current Kickstarter project, and it was a whole mess. And then you know to make a long story short, that game didn't meet expectations, and the game I was kickstarting did not uh would not be able to be created. So they did make a game. They did remake their original game, but not the sequel, which was pretty bittersweet. Uh, but that's the luck of the draw with Kickstarter. You win some, you lose some, but it's not a complete loss. There was a game at the end. A couple pictures of Sword of the Necromancer Revenant, so you kind of know what I'm talking about here. Again, when I'm pulling up pictures in a lot of these segments, they're mostly gonna be from Kickstarter, so these are games in development, or in this case, games that no longer exist. Uh, Pretty nice art style, pretty nice. And in the case of Sword of the Necromancer Resurrection, here's the title screen. I implore you to check it out. It's kind of the swan song of Grimorio games. Here's a little sneak peek of what you have to look forward to. Remake of the first game. Very beloved. They turned a 2D game into a 3D game on a limited budget. Not to mention, it has this really cool mechanic where if you defeat an enemy, you can revive it and then it can fight for you. You know, the little Necromancer mechanic. And it had original release date of around Echoes of Wisdom, which is crazy. Zelda never had something like that. And then the one time they have the idea of something like that, they drop it around Sword of the Necromancer, and that's the final nail in the coffin for them. That's crazy. Again, check this game out. It's Sword of the Necromancer Resurrection. Really good game. Really good art style. Really good voice acting. By now, Kickstarter, it's beginning to know me. It's beginning to serve me ads and stuff. And it gave me a bazillion ads for this next game. This next game is called Mika and the Witch's Mountain. Here's a couple pictures of it. It's this Ghibli inspired game. You play as a witch. You know, Kiki's delivery service. Really nice art style. You fly around. Yeah, here's me in the credits. Like a million people are in the credits of this game, so you gotta look really tough if you want to see me in the credits. But I beat this game front to back. Not the dungeons, I'll admit. Dungeons were added late into development, but I thought it was pretty good. The broom was a little tough to master at first, so it felt like immediately right after Mika wrapped up, Chibig, the developers, were like, okay, we're gonna do another game called Elusive. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't feel like jumping into another game. They're like, well, it's actually takes place in a house. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And they're like, well, you play as a tiny person and you run around and you live in like a teapot or whatever. And I'm like, okay, take my money. That's basically how I went. And also, I think that is when I discovered how Kickstarter has me hooked. Like, not the site itself, but like the entire formula, right? And what I mean by that is like the money thermostat, right? Oh man, everything's dying. Uh, I mean, I love it when they're like, all right, here's the goals that we need to reach, right? And then all of a sudden, they reach all the goals and then they add more. That's wild to me when they just start adding wilder and wilder goals. Like, I'm all about when they start adding like goals they never thought were obtainable. And they're like, oh man, we shattered all expectations. We reached like every goal possible. We didn't think we could make it this far. You know, I'm not too crazy when, you know, they just say, okay, we reached what we thought we could. You know, here's a couple, you know, physical whatevers. or whatever. We'll give you 2 if you want. I'm like, you know, get crazy, get crazy. If you're doing music, I don't know, just start. I'm not sure why you'd be doing music on Kickstarter, but start do like a 1 million goal for concert. I don't know, like sky's the limit when people are giving you money. Of course, you have to listen to the magical cash thermostat, but that goes without saying. Uh, Chibig eventually did, while making Elusive, they're still making Elusive. They split their team in half and they said, hey, you want to make another Kickstarter game? They're kind of crazy. And so they decide to make Belle's Fanfare. And once again, I said, all right, Chibig, I'm not gonna invest in another one of your crazy Kickstarter campaigns until Elusive comes out. And then they said, all right, well, our next Kickstarter is going to be, here's a couple of pictures of like this Majora's Mask inspired Ocarina in Time type of deal. It's gonna be kind of sad, kind of boaty, and it's gonna be, kind of dreary, adventure-y. And I'm like, where do I put my money? They won me over once again. Chibig, they know what people want. I don't know how they continue to do it. Additionally, hold on. Navi says, as you might have guessed, I'm not a living being. I'm simply a square box. I don't have the same life sense as you do. The life you possess is larger even than yourself. Okay, thank you, Navi. But I don't know how they do it. They just know what customers want. Chibig. They just know that people want Ocarina of Time during the time that people are rumoring Ocarina of Time will get a remake. But during Zelda's 40th anniversary. Uh, anything with a boat or like water or, that type of aesthetic, I'm in for. And Chibig loves that aesthetic. And, I played Majora's Mask not too long ago. I love the creepy aesthetic there. And I'm down for the creepiness. And they also have this thing where it's like every person that donates gets a coin, and there's this arena where you just run around, and I think I showed a picture where like you have to avoid all the coins in this arena, and that was pretty smart. They know how to incorporate both fan wants and like donator wants, I guess. A good balance between the two, if that makes sense. Maybe not the phrase donator wants especially, but Chibig is really good at making people who donate to their games feel seen and, I guess, acknowledged. I know in Summer and Mara especially, there's like bottles all over the place, messages in bottles. And, there's all sorts of stuff from like jokes to like marriage proposals and all sorts. And I feel like there's other Kickstarters that would make that harder for that to happen, to, break the immersion. But Chibig kind of lets the Kickstarter patrons kind of, I don't want to say go wild, but go and do, have free reign, I guess, of their world, I think is the best way of saying it. This next game really came out of a necessity because I finished the first three Ace Attorney games. I finished all the Danganronpa games. And then I was like, all right, what should I really play next? I want to play something, a visual novel that's just like that. And here comes The Murder Hotel, which kind of flips everything on its head. No longer are you looking for the killer, but you know who killed these people, and you're trying to frame it on someone, and how you ask questions. Here's a little representation. You ask questions by just saying the word after word, and making sentences. It's a really cool like mix up of the system, and there I am in the credits. But I think the Murder Hotel is like ingenious. The story's really good. Uh, like I said, the gameplay aspect is just like, how has nobody ever thought of that before? That's crazy. Right now, the Murder Hotel only has like one ending, but in the future, there's gonna be a future update that will add on at least one more ending that I know of, and it'll be interesting to see like how it turns out and how you can get the different endings. So far, I'm like I said, I'm really into it. I'm really proud that I made the Murder Hotel actually an actual thing. Next, we have Rollin Rascal, which is kind of like this Sonic. Uh, oh man, Diprotodon is said to be the ancestor of all reptiles. At first, the noble amphibians were bound to their watery domain. Over time, they adapted to life on land, and evolved into reptiles. Life's a trip. What does evolution even mean? What's it meant to mean? Will be. Is it all predetermined? uh, but Rollin Rascal, that just completely sidetracked me, is like what Sonic fans really wanted out of Sonic in like 2003, I guess, is a good way of putting it. And it's just a really good, really polished Sonic game by Artsy Omni and his team, who originally were doing Smashified. You know, the guy who made the fake Rayman? That's him. And the very minute I saw he was doing something, I'm like, I'm on this. That's like, if you've seen his stuff, it's like really high quality. You're like, how come this isn't an actual game? Now he's making an actual game. Now I'm I'm behind it 1,000%, and it looks fantastic. For this next game, I'm gonna be honest. I don't really have like a crazy backstory or anything or reason why I backed this game. I just backed it because I just got advertised it a lot. Uh, it's this RPG called Godshard Chronicles. It's based on this book series, which I thought, we don't get too many of those. And additionally, it's inspired by games like Lunar, Silver Star Silver Star Story, and like uh, the Mana series. Again, I haven't played either of those, but for some reason, I really wanted to jump on this Kickstarter, get behind on this game. There's a dog, a playable dog. That was the Kickstarter goal for this game specifically. I guess I'm just really curious slash anxious to see how it'll turn out. because I haven't played Lunar, I haven't played the Mana series, uh, I haven't really played A Link to the Past, but I hear they're all really good games, and uh, this game is being composed by the same Lunar composer, and it has really good voice talent. Uh, People on there. Who's doing the dog? I couldn't tell you, but altogether, it's a very interesting package rolled into one. A video game made off a book with SNES era RPG composers and elements, plus a unique fighting style. It's like kind of like Mana rolled into one. you know Again, I'm curious how I'll like it and how it'll play to the games it's inspired by when I eventually do play those other games. The final indie developer we're going to be talking about is Mew.works. Uh, they are the creator behind the Super Knight Rider series, which is kind of like Outrun, where you're kind of like in a car racing against other, computer players, and then, trying to beat your own time. But you might know him better for Light Fairytale. I've talked about him on the channel before. That if you know about Light Fairytale, right? It's a RPG series that relies heavily on the story. Like, story comes first, then gameplay. Normally it's gameplay then story, and I think that distinction is like so crazy that it it almost feels like how did you come up with this? Uh you get enraptured in the story like immediately. Just how it is written in Light Fairytale. And not only that, but here's another thing about Light Fairytale I'll gush about. There is like a save data transfer tool where if you play through Light Fairytale 1 and you end up at like level 5, you can start up Light Fairytale 2 and it'll be like, hey, you want to transfer over your level and all your items and whatever? And you'll be still at level 5 with all your skills and whatever. That's so cool. Like, only other game that I can think of that does something like that is Banjo Kazooie and Banjo Tooie. It's like, what the heck? Indie developers putting everyone else to shame? That's crazy. Um, but I highly recommend Light Fairytale just as a story game by itself. Uh, kind of like Final Fantasy VII, if I had to compare it to something. But again, I haven't played Final Fantasy VII. But even then, I can be like, hey, it does kind of give FFVI vibes. Uh, at least until the second like Fairytale, then it starts kind of breaking away and doing its own thing. But I think you should play it and let me know what you think. Well, I can talk about Light Fairytale for days. Talk about how it changed. I didn't even know there was level ups in this game. uh, how it changed the ability to get random encounters and like all sorts of. But let's move on to the next question. The Pokermen ask, why don't you make your channel just about one thing? Here's my thing about that. I feel like some channels do really good when they just say, "Hey, I'm just gonna be about Spider-Man or something. Hey, I'm just gonna be about mixed martial arts. Hey, I'm just gonna be about I don't know hamburgers." But I also feel if you do that, you kind of pigeonhole yourself. So if you do eventually want to stop talking about like hamburgers or something, because if you just make hamburger exclusive videos, your viewers are gonna be like, "You're the hamburger guy. You're the hamburglar." And if you try and make, a video about hot dogs, that's not gonna do as well. So my strategy is, my method to my madness is just do whatever you want, and people are gonna show up to whatever videos, No reason to be like, all right, hot dogs on this channel, hamburgers on the other. Just do like all in one, just food centric. If you do Spider-Man videos, and if you do, I don't know, car videos, it's like do all in one. Then your viewers really get a handle on your entire personality, what makes you you, and they would be subscribing for that instead of just the one thing, right?